Hey everybody, before this episode starts, I just want to let you know that if you're listening to this on the Friday or Saturday that it comes out, we are going to be doing a live stream on YouTube on Saturday at 3 p.m. Central. So if you want to come and join us over there, the co-hosts and the boys are going to be doing a tier list, just having some fun time, doing a little bit of extra content. And if you miss it, if you're listening to the Saturday or after, it's probably still up on YouTube and you can go find it. So that'll be a fun time. Make sure to join us over there this Saturday, 3 p.m. on our YouTube channel. It's going to be a blast. With that out of the way, enjoy this week's episode.
In a shot like that, I think he looks a little goofy in that shot to me.
That could be ripped straight out of the college humor Batman. He's just sleeping. He's just a sleepy boy.
He's asleep.
You see what I mean, though?
Yes, you're right.
when the light hits it right, it's kind of goofy.
Well, it looks like he's squinting too because of the light. He's like,
yeah.
Joker, justice,
Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk to me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so serious?
World! I could do this all day.
Are you watching closely?
Welcome everybody to the One Night Film Podcast. I'm your host Seth Mossberg, and today we're talking about Batman with Zach. It's gonna be a good one. That's all I gotta say. Let's go.
Let's go.
No, there's so much to talk about this character. I'm very excited the more I thought about the areas that I wanted to cover because it's such a complex character. That's kind of the point. That's why he's one of the superheroes who have lasted this long in pop culture. And man, there's pitfalls of the character and how he's been handled, but also some really great moments. So
I feel like we should preface this with, if you're a Snyder fan, you probably want to turn this off now.
Those few Snyder fans who are going to be very offended. There's still pros to the Ben Affleck Batman, I think. Well, let's start with that. What do you think each version of live action Batman has brought to the table, and what are the pitfalls? Now, I don't really want to include the old ones, like Clooney
Oh, you're not talking about those. Okay.
Not talking about
modern.
Those. Yeah,
Starting with Bale.
Yeah, Bale, Affleck, Pattinson, Arnett. Which I'm including Arnett for a reason.
You're including Arnett. Okay.
Oh my gosh. First off, the Lego Batman movie is one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's
so dumb and so funny, and just I saw a video that said this is why the Lego Batman version of Batman is the best Batman ever put to screen, because the old one, like, okay, think about the old movies before Bale. They were goofy and wacky because superheroes were kind of that was their genre. It was goofy and wacky. It wasn't until I would say X-Men a little bit, more into Batman Begins, and then slowly into the MCU did they start becoming more grounded in reality. But the Lego Batman turns that on his head and just plays into every single trope of Batman and combines all the storylines. Like, they reference multiple things from past movies, and he is Batman. Like, yes, that's the joke, like, I'm Batman, but he's all of the Batman. That's what makes it funny, is that he's seen everything that every iteration has seen, even though obviously those are different characters from different universes, if you will. But this is like the be-all, end-all Batman, and it's hilarious that he's a Lego. And just the Lego movies all around are so funny. They're so good. Well, maybe not Lego Movie 2, but the other ones are really good.
Have you seen the Lego Ninjago movie? When
it first came out, I've seen it once, and I never was a Ninjago fan, but I still liked it because it was the stupid Lego humor.
I haven't seen that one, actually, but this is off topic. But do you know how many seasons the Ninjago show had?
I have no idea. I know it's a lot.
Give it a guess.
20.
No, it was less. It was only 15, but that's still a lot for an...
Only 15.
Still a lot for an animated children's show.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. I know a lot of people are diehard fans of Ninjago, and I'm sure that I know the sets were really cool too. And the whole Spinjitzu thing, while we're on the topic, Spinjitzu basically being Beyblades for Legos. It probably did great for their market share and all that stuff. So I don't know. I never got into it. I don't know why. Anyways, Lego Batman.
Well, back to Batman.
I mean, I think I've said all I had to say about Lego Batman. I think Will Arnett is the perfect voice for him. He's got the goofy yet deep voice, and just the way he was written is just so over the top and brings back the goofiness of Batman in still somewhat of a serious way, even though it's still Lego. There's great balance, and I think it was perfect. I think it was a great movie.
I don't know what the word is for it. But it's kind of like what Princess Bride was for the fantasy genre, or Argyle was for the spy genre. It was like, that's what Lego the Batman movie was for Batman. I don't know what you call that type of thing, but kind of a...
Peak cinema?
Peak cinema. The peak cinema of Argyle.
Yeah, it encapsulates pretty much that genre, I would say.
Pulls off the extremes and everything, and
yeah, it doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
It knows what it is. It accepts it. It's kind of like the Fast and Furious. I would say Fast and Furious kind of ropes into that category of completely accepting what they are, being ridiculous, and just doing it to the fullest, I suppose. Batman.
Batman.
Outside of Lego Batman, between Bale, Affleck, and Pattinson, who do you think, or actually no, not who's the best, because there's pros and cons to both. Because I do think that asking who's the best Batman is an unfair question, I would say. So let's start with Bale, Christian Bale, and The Dark Knight Batman. What did The Dark Knight and Christopher Nolan, which we will cover in a Nolan Bros episode, which you're also going to hijack, I believe, because we wouldn't want to kick you out of those episodes. What did the Christian Bale version of Batman bring, and what did it drop in its portrayal?
Okay. I think he was definitely like the action hero Batman, and I think they definitely like what they did with the wrestling between Bruce Wayne and Batman a bit. You know, like there's the quote from Rachel in Dark Knight where she says,
"When I told you that if Gotham no longer needed Batman, we could be together, I meant it. But now I'm sure the day won't come when you no longer need Batman."
And I think, especially in Bale, that really shows that Bruce really needs Batman, and Batman is how he lives, and Batman is who he is. So I think that's really what Bale does really well.
And we know how Christopher Nolan is kind of weaving subtle tones or not so subtle tones in his movies. I mean, sometimes they're a little harder to pick up when they are subtle, but I meant like the first thing I thought of was how at the masquerade party, Bruce isn't wearing a mask because his face is his mask, because Batman is who he is. Everyone knows that. But that's the version of Batman that Nolan chose to portray. As I think about the other versions of Batman, as in versus Affleck versus Pattinson, Christian Bale's Batman really shows the Bruce Wayne side of him when it comes to parties and keeping up that front and running Wayne Enterprises and all those things. I think one of the pitfalls of the Christian Bale or of the Dark Knight trilogy is its groundedness, which is weird to say because it was one of the first grounded superhero movies. Like X-Men was there in the 90s, but they were still a little wacky. Like I said, the first few were still out there. It was adding all this science stuff and technology that actually kind of makes sense, which is a very Nolan thing to do. But it almost lost a little bit of groundedness because I think I saw some video essay that said because there's so much technology being explained, it's not fun anymore. I still find it fun because I still have a great time watching those movies. But I see what they're saying, the magic of Batman, of just being able to do anything. If you're limiting him by technology, even if you can explain it very well, I suppose isn't magical enough anymore. Magical to make it unbelievable. It makes it very believable, and that's why then it becomes you lose the unbelievability of a superhero. They're supposed to be unbelievable. It's like with Iron Man. None of his suit makes sense, like how you fit all those motors in that shift around and cover his entire body. Captain America, there's no way that he actually knows every single ricochet of his shield, and there's just a level of unbelievability. It's suspending your disbelief. Christopher Nolan's Batman, almost everything is explained to a point where you don't have to suspend your belief anymore. Yes, it's still a bit of science fiction with the technology being a little bit more futuristic, but it's too explained. And I think that's a pitfall, even though it's a great part of that trilogy. It's a one or the other.
I think that's kind of the issue with the Robert Pattinson movie too, especially when it comes to villains, is that I feel like they limited themselves a lot with who they could use for villains just because of the grounded nature of the stories. Because Batman's got some crazy villains, but it's hard to pull off some of them in like the Nolan verse or the Pattinson verse. So
yeah, well, let's talk about that really quick. The villains of Batman are really out there. They're meant to be. Because they were meant to be goofy originally. Even characters like the Joker weren't supposed to be taken seriously, even as a character. They was just supposed to be one-off, and people liked him so much they brought him or he became like the main antagonist. Have you seen the Gotham show?
I have not.
Okay, because the Gotham show actually has a pretty fun take on most of the villains.
Okay.
Yes, the default way to deal with them is by just saying they're insane. That's why Arkham Asylum exists. They're just insane and they have their own quirks. There's even an audio drama kind of series that Spotify puts out. I think it's a Spotify production. The first one is Batman Unburied, which is what I think it's the first story in that audio drama series. But Batman Unburied actually talks a little bit about, it's Bruce in a dream sequence where his parents are alive. And that's what hooks you, is that one of the first scenes is Bruce talking to his parents. Anyways, that one makes you kind of sympathize with the villains a lot more, but they're still insane. Like they're talkative, they're having these conversations that are like normal humans, but they still have that little quirk. Like the Riddler is a big character in those seasons, and he can have a conversation. He's a normal person up until the point where he kind of gets stressed, and then he starts talking in riddles, and then you know that he's also kind of he tends toward evil and ruining the city of Gotham. So there's different ways to explain it. I also, like I said, I think the Gotham show does it really well. Sometimes they just don't explain it. Like Poison Ivy just kind of gets some chemicals dumped on her, and she's able to grow plants. And I think Solomon Grundy is kind of a zombie character that's just kind of mystical, explained away. The Joker character is dealt with very interestingly in that show, but I really liked Gotham when I saw it 3-4 years ago. A lot of people don't know about it or have considered it, but it's an interesting take compared to the 3 that we're talking about. Anyways, over-explaining villains is probably the I don't know if it's a problem with the Batman universe, but like we've said, they were meant to be silly. So how do you explain a clown running around trying to be serious when he's really not? Now, I think the Joker, you can easily get away with making him insane, but I think they did a good job with Ra's al Ghul in Christian Bale, or in The Dark Knight, I feel like was being bad for evil's sake and not really with a motivation. Scarecrow is kind of driven by the need to know and the need to investigate, and so he uses his fear toxin on everyone. Yeah, we don't want to go through all of them, but I think it's very easy to underdevelop villains in the Batman universe just to say they're insane because they're too crazy for live action and for a grounded, as we want to say, type of movie, I suppose.
I feel like, especially with a character like Joker, I think you don't want to over-explain him or his backstory. I think a lot of who the Joker is that he is mystery and he's just kind of chaos incarnate for the most part. I sent you a reel a while back about the multiverse Joker that they were going to include in the new Suicide Squad game, where it was all about his like insecurities and trying to find his place in this new world. And that's not Joker at all. I mean, I think Joker's like a narcissist who's overconfident in himself and he's just mad and insane, and he's not insecure at all. I mean, that's like the last word you'd use to describe Joker, so I think. And I've never seen it, but I don't think the Joker movie is even that good of a take on the character. I know people raved about the movie and people loved that movie, but I think the DC brand and the Joker name were just kind of used to get more people in the theaters. It's like that could have just been its own thing, but so I think
I definitely agree. Yeah, if that movie was named anything other than Joker, no one would have seen it because it was a decent story about mental illness and all that, but if it didn't have the themes that were tagged along, it would have just flopped just like any other unknown movie. But I don't know. I think you're right. I think it did over-explain. It was interesting to explore that part of Joker, but I don't think it was necessary because yes, there is just supposed to be an acceptance that he's crazy.
Yeah, Joker's just supposed to start as a nobody, and then the vat of chemicals and all that, and then he's become this madman and everything. So
yeah, and I'm thinking about the other Dark Knight villains. Yeah, Bane's just kind of Bane for Bane's sake. Yeah, there's
Bane for Bane's sake.
I don't see his motivation. Maybe that's why it's the weaker of the movies, and maybe I'm just remembering incorrectly. But yeah, that's why I think like Lego Batman is more fun because you don't need to explain all of it because it's not grounded. It's just goofy. The Joker's motivation in Lego Batman is basically a bromance gone wrong, where he's like, "You need me, Batman. Pay attention to me," and Batman's like, "There is no us."
Oh yeah.
But yeah, what about Affleck? Ben Affleck or Affleck?
Affleck.
I call him Ben Affleck. What are all of his movies that he appeared in? Because he never had a Batman movie.
No, there was Batman vs. Superman, there was Justice League, there was the Snyder Cut, The Flash.
Yeah, he had a cameo in Suicide Squad. which technically that's probably amounts to the same as the Flash, the same level as the Flash. So I count it as 2 movies. He's been in 2 movies as Batman. Batman versus Superman, obviously. Justice League, obviously. 2 different cuts of Justice League, but I still think they're the same movie. Not saying that they are equally important or the same story. They're both Justice League, okay? Because to do Snyder Cut, he had to do reshoots of the original movie. So it's not, he didn't film 2 separate movies. They were the same movie and filmed a little bit extra or whatever. And then with Flash and Suicide Squad, cameos, which I think might have helped a little bit, make them a little bit more bearable, but I haven't seen Suicide Squad. I know that the Flash cameo didn't, it was like them trying to grasp straws to try and get any connection they could. That was kind of the same thing with Jason Momoa. And same thing when we're talking about the villains of Ben Affleck's movies. Lex Luthor...
He didn't really have any villains.
Okay, Lex Luthor, no one really liked Jesse Eisenberg's
he's a Superman villain.
Yeah, and he's a Superman villain. But I'm saying for those movies. And then Darkseid... Was it Darkseid or was it...
Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf for the Justice League.
Well, for both of them. Darkseid didn't show up until the end in Snyder Cut.
Okay, sure. Oh, I saw this amazing video. You know those YouTubers who do one cool idea and then everyone wants them to keep doing that idea but in different variations? There's this YouTuber who did, I don't remember what his first video was, but one of them in this series is reordering Marvel movies as though they were released like DC released their movies. Yeah. Those are super interesting because it shows the differences in the universes. I'll throw that video in the description, but that
he's
one
called
was
The
really
Black
interesting.
Lion.
Yeah. It's so weird to see the MCU as like Civil War is the first movie. Or no. It was what's
Iron
the equivalent
Man, probably.
to
Or Captain America. Yeah. It was one of those.
Yeah, either Iron Man or Captain America as the first movie, which is the equivalent of Man of Steel. Immediately jumped to Civil War. And then Avengers Infinity War, I think.
Infinity War.
One of the Avengers ones. It's just so random. It's so funny to see the real world things like DC saying we need to catch up to Marvel and we need to do it now. They didn't build up any of the other movies. So I'll throw that video in the description. It's a fun watch. Anyways, yeah, so they were basically like 2 villains because Suicide Squad is a movie about villains and the antagonist of the bad guys wasn't even Batman. It was just a cameo from a flashback. And then the Flash doesn't count because I don't even remember what villain he was fighting in the beginning with the Flash. Do you?
Captain Boomerang?
In the Flash?
Oh, in the Flash. Who they're fighting? They're just unnamed thugs, I think.
Thugs? I mean, is that what causes the earthquake and the CGI babies to fall out of the hospital?
Oh, I forgot what causes. I don't think that's villain related. I think that's just a natural.
Okay, cool. I wanted to forget about it anyways.
Yeah, love the baby scene. No, I hate it.
Don't get me started. Yeah, so Affleck. What did Affleck bring to the character, and what did he drop? We'll start the list. We'll start the list of all the balls he dropped.
I will say he was a pretty decent casting. I think Ben Affleck could have been a... What?
I have a disagreement in part, not in full. He's old.
He is old.
Being a little ageist here, but they threw us into an almost retired Batman. Or did Batman vs. Superman kind of start off with him being like, I'm done? Well, you barely started.
I think Zack Snyder's inspiration was, there's a comic called Dark Knight Returns, which is with an older Batman, so... Was
it Snyder who directed that? Yeah, it was. Okay. I forgot. I actually remember seeing trailers for Batman vs. Superman during a Super Bowl, and I was like, that kind of looks cool, because I was starting to get into superhero movies at that point. Yeah, it just seems so weird to pit Superman against Batman right away. In my mind, I know multiple storylines have been written on this, but in my mind, Superman wins every time. Obviously, there's kryptonite involved, but just the whole bat suit that's like a Iron Man suit, pretty much, where it's extra thick and it's not... I don't know, isn't that the first one we see in BVS? Is he's basically a Hulkbuster almost, where he's
no.
No?
We see a normal Batman suit first.
Okay.
The metal suit doesn't come until like the end of the movie. Sure. Maybe like halfway through.
Yeah. I just think with Affleck we were thrown into the middle or even the end of a Batman character that I wish we could have just built up to. And even still, I think that we could have gotten... We should have, if we were to explore that storyline, Snyder should have cast a little bit younger character to build that storyline off of. Really quick, has James Gunn cast a Batman in his universe?
Not yet.
Not yet. He's just cast the Superman movie because that started filming recently, I think. Yeah, and then people have been talking about if Pattinson is going to be the DCU or the DCU Batman, and everyone, well, obviously he's not because it's just separate. It's not the same. But that's going to be so weird for the person who's not a normal comic book fan to have multiple Batmans going at the same time. That's pretty much like if they made an Amazing Spider-Man 3 and had already introduced Tom Holland in the MCU. People who aren't nerds are going to be very confused.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how that works with rights. Maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe there's an agreement. But the Penguin series is coming out on Max soon. And so the Matt Reeves Batman is going strong. And I think they're filming the second movie there. So I'm really interested to see what happens in these next couple years when it comes to Pattinson.
Have you ever seen the Snyder Cut?
Yeah. I watched through it once. It was long and a lot.
Okay. I saw half of it with a group of friends. And we never wanted to pick up.
That's the length of a normal movie, is half of the Snyder
Cut.
Yeah.
None of us felt like picking it back up later. So.
That's funny.
Is there anything that you think Affleck does right? It's been a while since I've seen any of his movies, but
he does the brooding Batman well.
Yeah, he does.
But I don't think he does the Bruce Wayne as well, which I think is interesting compared to Pattinson, that people have said is a lot darker and a lot more Batman than Bruce Wayne. But I think Affleck is a good middle ground of being Batman, where he's just kind of he struggles to put on a playboy face, an ability to be the leader of Wayne Enterprises. And I will say, with the Affleck and Snyder Batman, I loved Jeremy Irons as Alfred. I think that was a great casting, and he's got even the way that he was written was a little snarky, a little bit. I mean, that is what Alfred is, but I think usually he's like a decrepit old man, kind of like Michael Caine. Michael Caine was also a good cast for Alfred, but if you were to develop the character a little bit more, it would be the Jeremy Irons version, where he's not super old, he's still smart, he's quick as a whip, and he's loyal. I mean, every Alfred has been loyal, but yeah, I really like that version.
I think Snyder's just general approach to his universe was way too pessimistic for me. I think
That's Snyder for you.
Yeah, we've mostly seen this Batman that's already given up and everything like that, and it's just hard to really have any hope there, especially with what he's recently said on the Joe Rogan podcast. He really said some stuff there.
Yeah, I'm still listening to that one.
Okay. I just saw the clips there on Instagram. But, he said that one thing about he wanted his Batman to be like an alcoholic and be like sleeping with a different woman every night because all of the trauma he faced and all that. But that just completely misunderstands who Batman is. It's Batman's response to his past trauma is not sex and alcohol. His response to his past trauma is Batman in itself. He directs it all towards his crime fighting. He's got like this tunnel vision of determination. The Playboy and all that is only the mask that Batman wears, as we've already said. Starting Batman at such this low point was such a misstep and a mistake. He's, Batman in any canon and in any lore, he's got his low points and he hits rock bottom, but his story is always how we can overcome and rise above those.
Yeah, you're very right. That's a good analysis. I feel like there's a lot hinted at in BVS that you wish you would have seen. It's not, okay, I shouldn't say it's not a good movie, but it leaves you really wanting when it hints at a movie that could have been better, and it just tells you what it was instead of showing you. The Batman, or the Robin suit, or not Robin. Oh, yeah. It was the Batman suit that was spray painted, and it had, I think, reference to Robin, or had the
that was a Robin suit.
Okay, so it was a Robin suit spray painted with Joker designs, and it's assumed that the Joker killed Robin. That would have been a much more interesting story to understand why Affleck is so distraught and why has he lost Dick Grayson to one of his most mortal enemies. Like, that would have been such a good movie.
That's the problem, though. Somehow, or for some reason, he chose for Dick Grayson to be the Robin that dies. I don't know if you know.
Was it Dick Grayson? I just threw out a name that I knew was right.
No, he said it was Dick Grayson, but there's a very popular storyline in Batman comics about a Robin that dies, whose name is Jason Todd. Have you heard about this whole? Do you know the storyline? The Red Hood storyline?
Well, I know the name Jason Todd. That's about it.
Okay. Basically, there's a Batman, or there's a Robin that dies and then comes back to life because of the Lazarus Pit and all that, and then he becomes a killer and everything, and then it's basically the Winter Soldier, except I think Red Hood happened first. I don't know why Zack Snyder chose for Dick Grayson to be the Robin to die when there's such this popular storyline about a Robin that dies. It was just another mistake from Zack Snyder.
Yeah, and Snyder loves to do this. He just throws in these random things. I'm watching the scene really quick. Bruce goes and looks at his own suit. He just has a secret compartment. He looks at it and he kind of broods at it. And he's like, and then he walks over and looks at the Robin suit that says, haha, joke's on you, Batman. He pauses and then walks up. It doesn't add to the current story. It's just hinting at a story that was and should have been made instead of this one that we're watching now. And I think that's a kind of a need to have it rushed, the whole story, the whole DCEU rushed. But yeah, I wish the topic of Robin wasn't so touchy, because nowadays something like that is considered a little creepy. Having a billionaire guy take in an orphan boy and raise him as his protege. That's a little creepy, especially what's been coming out with the Disney, is it Disney Channel? Shows and Nickelodeon shows. But I wish those stories were pursued without just ignoring that it's creepy, because it's our current society that has made it so, and having more of what it's supposed to be, of just one orphan grown up and wealthy seeing another orphan and taking him in under his wing for love, and then having regret about that when he's put in the immediate line of fire and it goes wrong, it goes south. I think that could be a very interesting story, and that hasn't been explored. And I don't know if Pattinson's Batman is going to get there, because that's the one that's still developing. I hope they do, because it's interesting that we've had so many variations of Batman, and you know, the modern look is to have it all tactical and like his suit all tactical and all that. We have never had technically a tactical Robin suit. Well, maybe the Titans TV show maybe did, but that's still their own thing. And I feel like having kind of a teen trying to figure out what it means to be a superhero at such a young age would be a great storyline.
Well, we are seeing Robin in the first James Gunn Batman movie.
He did confirm that?
Yeah. Okay. Except it's going to be Damian Wayne, which is like the fourth Robin.
Oh. I don't know. I know there's been multiple Robins. That's about it. I couldn't tell you.
There's Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, and Damian Wayne. Okay. There's been a couple girl Robins too. I don't remember their names.
Okay, I'm looking at the Robin suit from Titans. It actually looks pretty decent. It's kind of one of those, you know, it's a TV show. It's trying to emulate the modern look, but I don't know. I've heard hit or miss things about Titans. What interests me about Titans is that Teen Titans, the cartoon, was so ridiculous and goofy. That's the point. It's a comedy kids show.
Well, that's Teen Titans Go that you're talking about.
Is Teen Titans not Go? Is that taken seriously? I thought that one was still a little goofy.
A little goofy, but taken way more seriously than Teen Titans Go. It was kind of in an anime style.
I was going to say, Teen Titans is more anime. Teen Titans Go is, very cheesy. But Titans is like another level. It's like the adult show, I suppose. I don't know. It's one that I'd be interested in watching if I have time, and I don't. Batman. Now we can move on to Pattinson.
Yes.
I think. Pattinson kind of made a stir, both with his casting and when the movie came out. People said that his Batman was very dark. And that kind of goes hand in hand, funny enough, with his Twilight movies that he's so well known for. And I think he says that he wishes he wasn't. And he's been trying to do multiple different projects to try and get away from Twilight. But the Matt Reeves Batman is very emo, is what everyone says. And I don't know if that's the right word to go with Batman. But I think with how modern superhero movies are, I think Matt Reeves did it well. I need to watch it again to remember the story and the meaning behind Batman being Batman, as in the lines and such that are said in the movie besides the obvious character of Batman. But I still love things like the gun flashes in the hallway scene. Like, that's a classic. He's still the hero at the end, even though it kind of has a fourth act that should have ended sooner. His saving the city at the end is still a hero move. And it kind of was phoned in because they were like, oh yeah, he's the hero. He's supposed to save people. He's not just supposed to take down the villains. But still, I think it was well integrated in the sense that he did the sacrifice to do that at the very end, to have that march out of the convention center or whatever, because it showed his heart. It showed it a little bit more heart of Batman. But yeah, I think Pattinson just broods a little too much. I think he understood what Batman was and took it a little too far.
Well, I think that's kind of the point. I think it's the start of something that we're going to see in the next few Batman movies. You know, I feel like in this one, Bruce has kind of lost himself in Batman in a sense, and he doesn't want to be Bruce Wayne at all, really. For most of the movie, he views himself as just this kind of symbol of vengeance. But then, towards the end of the movie, he's like, we don't need vengeance, because, he kind of saw that Riddler was what vengeance really is, and he saw that he couldn't be that. The city needs something more than that, so that's when he decides to be kind of a symbol of hope at the end of the movie, and he helps the people instead of just beating up the bad guys. And that, I feel like we're going to see a lot more of that in his next installments, and just kind of seeing him discover who he can be as Bruce Wayne and how he can help people without the mask.
There is definitely more Batman than Bruce Wayne in the Batman. It's called The Batman. Bruce Wayne is still a loner, and this is supposed to be like a second-year Batman. I can appreciate that about the Matt Reeves universe a lot. It's not thrown too far into the Batman story like Snyder did with Affleck. There's plenty of story to tell. We only got one villain, well, two villains, Penguin and Riddler, and I still think that they were decently handled with modernizing them without just making them crazy.
You got Catwoman too.
Yeah, I forgot about her, but also I don't know that she's really a villain. She's an anti-hero. I don't know. And a hint at the Joker. I'm excited to see that version.
And Falcone.
Because... Okay. But I think this is kind of a self-identifying Batman movie because there's lines in it that are just so good.
People need hope. To know someone's out there for them. The city's angry. Scarred. Like me. Our scars can destroy us. Even after the physical wounds have healed. But if we survive them, they can transform us. They can give us the power to endure and the strength to fight.
Huzzah! Bars. Yeah, that's still figuring out who Batman is, and that's Bruce thinking about that himself. I'm excited to see where the rest of that goes.
I like his suit a lot. I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
Man's a tank.
I know. The Batman or the Dark Knight suit?
I think, actually, the Dark Knight suit, it looks kind of goofy in some shots. Especially in daylight.
In daylight, yes. I can see that.
And there's especially a shot in the Dark Knight where he looks so goofy, if I can find it. I don't know.
Okay.
I won't be able to find it.
The Dark Knight poster, though, is one of the best posters from any of the Batman movies. With him standing below his burning emblem. That's such a sick shot. I love that so much. It's easy wallpaper material. Again, they went with the tactical look, and I think that kind of inspired the initial push to make superheroes look more tactical. And they definitely did a lot more technology improvements on the cowl. I saw a video of how they were trying to let him have full range of motion whilst... Or was that... Maybe that was for the Batman. Either way, the cowl of Batman has always been a problem. One of my favorite videos to go back and watch. Michael Keaton's Batman, who wasn't able to move his neck. Have you seen that video?
Oh, yeah.
Where he has to move his shoulders, and then he looks up, and he's... It's so funny. But being able to actually move his neck is one thing that was kind of introduced, weirdly enough, in The Dark Knight. I still think that it looks cool. It's minimalist color. It's just the belt is basically has a bit of color, but I would need to see a side-by-side comparison for Bale versus Pattinson. What's interesting about Pattinson's suit is that his mask comes back to almost his ears, or the gap in his mask comes back to almost his ears. So you see a lot more of his face.
In a shot like that, I think he looks a little goofy in that shot to me.
That could be ripped straight out of the College Humor Batman. He's just sleeping. He's just a sleepy boy.
He's asleep.
You see what I mean, though?
Yes, you're right.
when the light hits it right, it's kind of goofy.
Well, it looks like he's squinting too because of the light. He's like,
yeah,
Joker, Justice, You're right. I keep looking at it. It could be a College Humor Batman. You know how he talks? The funny part is that the College Humor skits and the Studio C skits, the ones I like better than College Humor because they're a little bit more clean. They're based off of The Dark Knight, and he kind of talks like it. Like when you watch those skits and then you watch The Dark Knight, you're like, oh yeah, I can see why they're taking that. I'm not wearing hockey pants.
I'm not wearing hockey pants.
I'm not wearing hockey pants.
a little bit of a lisp in there. Dark Knight is just like shows this much, and that kind of leads to his almost pursed lips, whereas Pattinson is more natural, showing most of his chin, which, again, we know that it's Robert Pattinson. I don't know how much of a jawline needs to be shown where people are like, you look a lot like Bruce Wayne. But the other comparison that I noticed really quickly, obviously the logo is different. They had to make something unique. But the cape has a lot of collar on Pattinson's. It's raised up. And that, I think, leads to the silhouette being iconic for that outfit. And obviously the ears are a little thinner. They tried to make it, with so many variations of Batman, they have to make it look unique somehow. And I think they did it well. I think you could look at any silhouette of the Batman, you could tell which one's which because of how they redesigned it each time.
It's very stylistic while still being very tactical, but Pattinson's suit is mostly just that simplistic, tactical type of look.
Yeah.
Especially with the mask.
Really quick, going back to Christian Bale, I believe between Batman movies, he did another method acting movie where he had to drop weight. I don't know if it was The Masochist that was, or The Machinist.
That's mean The Machinist, yeah.
Machinist. I don't know if it was The Machinist that was in between movies, but there was a movie where he had so much muscle for Batman, and then he dropped so much weight for either The Machinist or something else. And then
he did do The Prestige between two of them.
Yeah, and that he's just normal there, which is funny being in two different Nolan films in between each other. But then he put on too much muscle for the second time he came back for Batman. Like they were like, you gotta slim down a bit, buddy. You're too bulky. Yeah. Fun fact about, oh my gosh, that man in method acting. I'm glad he's done doing that. Yeah. He's killing himself with that.
That was not healthy.
I wish we had Josh on to talk about Batman in video games, because that would be very fun to do. There's a lot of different video game adaptations.
I've played most of the Arkham games.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how much I have to say about them, but
okay.
It was a very, I don't know. I was mostly excited to play him because it was Kevin Conroy voicing Batman and Mark Hamill voicing Joker. So I was excited to see more of them play those roles. And I really actually like how they handle a lot of the characters in that game. They're not afraid to not be grounded. It's like they're modern, but not grounded, which we haven't really seen that. So that's really cool to see. And the characters just really feel like the core essence of who they should be, especially like the villains. They feel like they should be, but in a modern setting. So they handle that very well. Sure.
I mentioned a while ago the quote from The Batman that talks about people need hope. And Batman thinks that he can do it by being a symbol. Even that is explored in The Dark Knight, where other people are trying to be the symbol, and his symbol is tarnished because people are just trying to imitate the thing that people are looking up to. And Batman's like, well, now it's kind of useless if everyone's Batman. But the point there is that people do need something to hope for. And in the real world, who else are you going to hope in except the one who created us, I would say. That's just throwing that out there. Again, bringing it back to the book that started this all, Hollywood Heroes by Frank Turek. He said, if you like Iron Man, you're going to love Jesus. If you like Batman, you're going to love Jesus. If you like Luke Skywalker, you're going to love Jesus. Because there's little bits of those characters that make them so great that are a big part of what Jesus is in our great savior, in the greatest story ever told. And that's the history that's still being written today. And so there's that hope that is in everyone. That's why that quote is so good, is because people do need something to hope in. But it's not Batman. It's none of these superhero movies. It's Jesus and his saving work that he did on the cross and the eternal life that we can have with him forever. Boom! Sorry.
I think there's also a lot of comparisons you can make between Batman and Job, because the whole thing with Job is like that despite everything, he did not curse God. And I think with Batman it's kind of like that, except despite everything, he never broke his rule, his no-kill rule. And he didn't turn to evil or anything like that. Despite every villain, despite all the tragedy, despite all the trauma, he never broke. And it's like, it's like a fight. It's like an internal battle inside himself to not become one of his villains, but he managed to just continue fighting and continue working as Batman to just keep the light going.
I think something that Batman does, one of the things that Batman depicts very well when it comes to application and understanding how it relates to our actual reality and not fiction, is that the story of Batman, not necessarily the character, but the villains, Gotham, and everything else, displays the fallenness of human nature so well. It shows the depravity and sinfulness of humans / the villains. Batman never takes a day off because there's always crime going on. Now, Gotham is meant to be an extremely big city, and I think I forget that it's not just Minneapolis, which Minneapolis is big, but it's nothing compared to the big cities. There's so much crime going on, and Batman thinks he needs to stop it all, which he kind of does. That's also part of I think, an interesting story arc that often goes hand in hand with Batman movies and how he works with the police. But Batman can never take a day off because even though he locks up villain after villain after villain, Gotham is never safe because there will always be sin. No matter how many villains he locks up, there's still going to be sin. And he seems to, there's never an end goal in his mind. He just puts the villains away and keeps doing it and doing it and doing it and expecting a different result. Insanity, anyone? It shows how fallen we are because there's no utopia for Gotham. There will never be utopia for Gotham in the stories because that defeats the point of Batman, for one. But we understand that there will always be sin until the great savior comes, the one who will judge all sin and not just lock them up for their due sentence. I mean, it is their due sentence in the end, but it's just because it's from the creator of the universe, I would say.
You know, Gotham is as much a character in the story as anyone else. You know, Gotham, it's a living, breathing character. You know, it transforms people, turning good men bad and bad men worse, is how I would describe it. You know, like many of Batman's worst foes and worst villains, they start as just like victims of circumstance. I think of like Two-Face, Mr. Freeze, Harley Quinn, and Clayface. They all started as good people, but just because of the corruption and the darkness in the city, now they're all some of Batman's worst criminals. And it's just interesting to see. I feel like we saw that Gotham a lot in the Robert Pattinson movie, I would say. It feels like a living, breathing entity. And I think we saw that, I would say, in Batman Begins, but I think Nolan kind of loses that in the next two, in Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. I think it feels more just like New York City than Gotham. But in Batman Begins and The Batman, it really feels just like this entity of corruption and darkness that, you know, as I said earlier, you know, like Batman's got to fight himself to prevent himself from falling into the evil and the darkness of the city.
Yeah, I think the show Gotham explores that well. It is kind of intense. I think it's TV-14, so it's a little bit more than PG-13 sometimes, I would think. Or it's about PG-13. I think that's about the equivalent, right? I remember it being a little bit more intense. Maybe I was a little younger then. But yeah, I remember that, doing it, explaining the character of Gotham well. And that's also kind of a theme in Daredevil, I would think. There's a little bit of comparison. Funny that Affleck played both Daredevil and Batman. Oh, yeah. But I'm thinking like Wilson Fisk and the police in the same way that often like Falcone and the police or other characters are intertangled with the law, or the law isn't always above board. Things like that. We've been talking all about the live action ones, and now it's time to talk quick about the animation ones, because we have to talk about animation. I do have a degree in animation, and I'm proud of it.
Oh, really? Wow.
Wow. You actually had me watch Batman the Animated Series before this. Not the whole thing. Not all three. Is it 3 seasons? 4 seasons?
4.
Okay. Certain ones that you had me watch. I really liked them. I'd never seen them before. I knew the style, but that it was a TV show, and I couldn't tell you anything about it. I really liked them. I think we addressed this when we were talking about live action remakes. Possibly, I think it was the 2024 predictions episode, where we might have brought up live action Moana or whatever live action was coming out this year. And how when you bring it into live action, you lose a sense of forgiveness to make it unrealistic. With animation, you always have that in the back of your mind that this isn't supposed to be real. It's supposed to be fake. And so you have that level of disbelief, that little bit that you're pushing to the side just to give it the benefit of the doubt. And that's where some of the storylines for Batman thrive in the animation, because you don't need to explain everything. Batman's Batman. You don't need to know every single tool in his tool belt. You don't need to know how his wings work. I still think about that in Batman Begins, where it's a super cool tech where it's like magnetized.
Oh, yeah.
You can shape it to anything. That's cool tech. I didn't need to know how that happens for me to appreciate Batman. It's a take that Nolan chose to approach the character with. But with animation, it's just, you know Batman, you know his villains, you're there to watch the story. The stories are really good. And there's been multiple animated versions, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think they thrive in their own way. They're not being serious because it's animation. Not saying animation is better or worse. It helps serve the story that it's trying to tell. Yes, it's a kid's show. I get that. It's supposed to be a little bit less toned down. But that doesn't, just because it's animation doesn't make it a kid's show, and just because it's a kid's show doesn't mean it needs to be shallow, because the episodes I saw were really good. And it just shows the core essence of Batman and the stories you want to tell without needing to explain anything, like the mental illness of the villains, or how Batman's tech works, or the lore behind adopting Robin. Not Robin, I believe Dick Grayson. But it's just a story. Story of Batman, as is, because that's all you need.
Yeah. Well, especially, Kevin Conroy's Batman is like the Batman for so many people. He himself, I'm going to spend some time here just praising Kevin Conroy. He's the first one who changed his voice when he was Batman. He's the one who started that.
Oh, like he's a Bruce Wayne voice and then he's a Batman voice?
Yeah, he's the first one who did distinctive voices for the two of them.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
I mean, Adam West didn't do that at all. And
yeah. Adam West.
We haven't talked about Adam West. We should probably touch on him at some point. But he's there. He's goofy. He's fun. I don't know what else to say about him. He's got some good stuff if you want the goofy. Yeah, Kevin Conroy, though, he just took a very, I don't know. It's like when you think of who Batman is, I would say Kevin Conroy, and just his portrayal in the animated shows and in the Arkham games and everything, he just encapsulates all of it so well. Just kind of a man burdened with, I was about to say burdened with glorious purpose, but that's low-key.
Wrong show.
Burdened with all this responsibility to just like take care of his city, and just kind of how that comes out of the trauma in his life with his parents dying. It comes out very well in his performance. And I know that's the writers and directors are responsible for that too, but he just, with just how he says his lines and all that, you can really just feel everything behind every word he says.
Did you ever see the Crisis on Infinite Earths, or was it Crisis on Earth X?
The movie or the Arrowverse crossover?
No, Arrowverse. It was well, you know, with the Crisis and crossover events.
Yeah, Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yeah, they had Kevin Conroy play Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. He did a live-action Batman. I don't know. I knew that piece of knowledge, and I thought that was cool.
He was evil.
He was very evil.
He killed Superman.
Sure. I need to watch this scene again, but yeah, I think that's cool because a voice actor usually doesn't get the credit they deserve most of the time. Mm-hmm. They show up at Comic-Con, and the diehard fans know them, but a casual viewer won't. Like, a casual viewer will see Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson, Christian Bale, and say they were Batman. In, like, you know those moments when you're watching a movie and you're like, where do I know them from? And then you're like, oh, I've seen their face in this other thing. You don't get that with animated shows. And so I think that was cool to have Kevin Conroy actually play a Batman at one point. I think we need a whole episode on the Joker, but I just wanted to throw out this amazing video that I saw. I think it was from 10 years ago from Comic-Con in 2014. Troy Baker and John DiMaggio. DiMaggio? Sorry. They did a Joker laugh-off. Like, they each did a Joker laugh from something they played, probably from the video games. Because Troy Baker's in the video games. It sounds so good. It gives me chills. I know the Joker laugh has been kind of coveted for being able to do that, and I know Mark Hamill really does it well, which I was surprised all those years ago to learn that Mark Hamill was also the Joker, and a beloved one at that.
I was about to say, you can tell both of those guys were very inspired by Mark Hamill and their portrayals. Of course. I
mean, I just sent you a video just today of apparently a Mark Hamill cameo in Scooby-Doo.
Oh, yeah.
Where he starts laughing like the Joker, and he's like, sorry.
Oh, there's an episode there was a Justice League cartoon from a few years ago where in the same episode he plays himself, Mark Hamill. He plays the Joker, who's a character he's played multiple times in the past. The Trickster, who's another character he's played from the past. And Swamp Thing. All in one episode, he's playing all four of these different characters. Yeah.
That's cool. I also remember him in The Flash playing the Trickster, or Trickster Senior or something. Yeah, that was a weird one because he also utters the line, "No, I'm your father," and you're like, "Oh my goodness, that's good." It's even if they're cheesy, Easter eggs are fun.
Yeah. Well, that's because he played the Trickster in that Flash show because he played the Trickster in the Flash back in the 90s.
So
which
he had already
where the actor of Barry's dad in the
I was gonna say
new show plays the Flash in that show. So
because he played the Flash from the old TV show in the new TV show. After playing Barry's dad, he's a doppelganger. And Jay Garrick. So I watched Sheev Talk's video about how the Flash just went off the deep end the last couple seasons. It's so funny to watch him rant about it. But
out of their 9 seasons, I think there's 3 good ones probably.
There's 1, 2, and I've heard 4 is decent.
I liked 3. I don't know if you saw
Savitar.
I liked that one.
It was interesting. I think it started breaking their own rules. I mean, they were breaking their own rules from the beginning. We're not here to talk about the Flash. Did we talk about the Flash? Are we going to talk about the Flash?
I think so. I think I'm signed on for that one.
Yeah, it's unscheduled right now. We will be talking about the Flash sometime. That's going to be interesting. I'm excited for that one.
Part of, what foundationally makes Batman Batman is that he doesn't kill people. And I actually just found out today watching a video that the only reason this started is that because the original writers originally gave Batman a gun, but then the publishers were like, we don't want a hero to have a gun. That's how that all started, and then it just kind of became part of his character and part of who he is. And I think it's really cool how it's become that, especially with his history and with everything that's happened to him in the past, with his parents getting shot in an alley. It makes sense to him to have him be this character who doesn't want to, I feel like in some ways it's because he doesn't want to take a father from a child is part of the reason why he doesn't kill his criminals, even if it's someone like the Joker or anything like that. He doesn't want to cross that line and become who they are, because that's kind of the breaking point. And there's even in the movie called Batman Under the Red Hood, which actually stars Jensen Ackles as the Red Hood. But that one's really good. If you need a animated Batman movie to watch that one. One of the final scenes, though, is because Joker's the one who kills that Robin, and then he comes back as Red Hood. One of the final scenes is, Red Hood's got a gun to Joker's head, and then he says to Batman, he's like, it's either him or me. So then I think Batman just ends up walking away because he's not going to kill either of them in that situation because that's not who he is. He remains he stays true to his morals and who he is because he knows he's only one bad day away from becoming who he fights and who he just the complete opposite of himself.
Yeah, I think I have one more thing that I'm interested. There have been a lot of fan casts for Batman, especially with DCU coming up, not knowing who is in the talks with James Gunn. Who would you cast if you were James Gunn as the next Batman? I don't know. Even though we have a current Batman, which is stupid, there's no changing that right now.
I kind of like the idea of Elseworlds projects, like the Batman and all that, but
say that? What do you mean by that?
Elseworlds projects, it's like the Batman and Joker, and I think we're going to have more projects that aren't connected to the main universe, and those are considered Elseworlds projects.
Okay, so what about that are you saying?
Well, you were saying you don't like the fact that there's going to be 2 Batmen, but I was saying I think it's kind of cool to have different interpretations of characters. But
I suppose I feel like they should be in between cinematic universes, and I'm all against cinematic universes for the most part. I really think they've ruined a lot of movies, but I think it's too confusing. Maybe not. Maybe I'm actually on the side of cinematic universes in the sense that I feel like everything needs to be connected. So I'm playing both sides of the coin, which is I hate myself for. But yeah, they don't need to be connected. As long as the rights are fine, just I guess leave it as is.
They're all made by the same company, so there's no problem with rights.
I suppose. But did you have a fan cast?
I don't know.
Let me read some names. This is from Screen Rant. Their top picks for who could be a good Batman. Jensen Ackles, you said already played the Red Hood. He's played Soulja Boy in The Boys, and I know he's very likable. People love him from Supernatural. Bradley Cooper, I think he's a little old. These are my thoughts as I say him. Jake Gyllenhaal, I think he's too old as well, and I think he's too goofy. I'm not saying he can't play a normal character, but he's very likable because of the types of characters he plays. Okay. Such as Mysterio. I think Nightcrawler he was a out there character. So I'm not saying he could never, but I don't think that he's a good fit. Screen Rant kind of just makes articles just because they can. Alan Richardson. I love Alan Richardson.
I thought he was your top pick.
Oh,
You told me he was your top pick.
When? Oh, one of the things I sent you on Instagram. Yeah, that was like four faces or something. No, he's got the body for it for sure. I don't know that he has the face for a Bruce Wayne. I think he's more. I don't know which superhero I would cast him as. I mean, how about just Jack Reacher? Just keep playing Jack Reacher. But I think he's too much of a.
Bring him back as Aquaman. That's what they should do.
Oh, because he was at Smallville that he was Aquaman.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's too much of a pretty boy. Not to say Bruce Wayne's not a pretty boy. He definitely is. I don't know which side of the coin I'm playing here. This is the Screen Rant headline. Popular DCU Batman casting choice, Alan Richardson reveals why he wants to play the iconic superhero. So he's down. And I think with how popular he's been, Jack Reacher, he's been in Fast X, he's coming up in Ministry of Ungenitally Warfare. He's very popular now. He's been popular. He's going to be popular for many years to come. I would see it as a good cast. There's something about him. And he's a Christian, so I'm not saying that there's anything about his character. I don't know. There's something that doesn't fit. I can't tell you what, because I have no idea myself. I'll just say that.
Let me show you something.
What do you think?
Let me show you this. Well, first I want to show you this real quick. This was kind of the Justice League in Smallville.
Yeah, I remember they had like a
sweatshirts.
It was one of those things where it wasn't, a team up, but it was definitely a team up. That's funny. He's so small. Richardson is so small.
Yeah. The funny thing is too, just to be a little off topic again, is that Tom Welling, his Clark doesn't become Superman until the end of the show. Like, the Justice League forms before he's actually Superman.
Okay. That doesn't make sense.
It's weird, yeah.
Okay.
We can talk about that in a different episode. But who would I cast? I don't know who I cast. I feel like, the main three who have spoken interest in playing Batman is Alan Richardson, Jensen Ackles, and Jake Gyllenhaal. And I feel like, knowing Gunn, it's not going to be any of those three.
That's right, because I think I said a while ago, thinking about who he cast as Superman and Lois and Lex. I only recognize the actor of Lex, which I can't even remember his name right now. But he kind of goes the George Lucas route, where he picks nobodies. And again, I mean that with all respect. They've been in a lot of stuff already. People who aren't well known. He kind of gives the underdog a chance, because I think that that's a problem. Casting people like Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic and all the other Fantastic Four, I still think that's a problem, because that's using clout from a well-known face as the selling point for your movie instead of the point that it's going to be a good movie. James Gunn, however, has the same problem with himself. If he's going to make any movie, no, he's not making them. I think he's making other people direct them. But if he has that leading helm behind these movies, he already has a reputation from both the Guardians movies, and some people really like the Suicide Squad, even though it was R-rated and kind of bad in that way. He has a reputation himself. So I don't think he's trying to stockpile big names necessarily. He is giving the underdog actor, a chance, and I think that's great. But I think people are going to kind of go see it because it's a James Gunn DC universe or DC movie,
which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No, you definitely want to sell your movie.
Yeah,
but I still think you're right in saying that any of the Jensen Ackles, Alan Richardson, they would be too popular for him to choose. I think when the Batman casting choice is going to come out, both Batman and Robin, we're going to be like, and we're going to have to do a quick Google. I definitely think that, even though a lot of people have been fan casting. So that's all I got.
I mean, the MCU started with no names pretty much, and I think that's one of the reasons it did as well as it did. So,
well, that's weird. That's weird to me, thinking that RDJ and Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth were not well known before that. But yeah, they were really popular because of those. Anyways, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Batman. I know we've covered a lot of different areas, but make sure to join our Discord because we have some great conversation over there. Follow us on all our socials. We might be getting rid of TikTok soon. That's a fact, just because TikTok is becoming something I never thought possible, but I'd rather just be off of it. And I don't think we're bringing many people into the podcast family because of that. So just saying, it might only be Instagram and YouTube from here on out, but follow us everywhere you find us. All our links are in the description, and make sure you tell your friends about it, because other people are actually interested in hearing, not us talk. I don't want it to be about us. I want it to be about the community and pushing ideas and conversation in the Discord, mostly because that's where good conversation can be had. But follow us all there. Buy some merch, because I haven't pushed that in a while. And again, that's not for my gain. I just want us to have some fun merch for the squad, for the people who listen. So do that for funsies. Until next week, know that you are loved. God bless.
I'm Batman.
Ah!